Big shout out to our sponsors. Listeners, don't miss out on these amazing deals. Get 10% off Cyc Plus, the best e-pump on the market, and their other cycling products. 35% off Frey Skincare for skin that sweats. And 25% off Genki Wellness Nutrition packages, all using the coupon code ZONE2SPEAK at checkout. That's ZONE2SPEAK. Head to the podcast description for all the links and grab your exclusive discounts today. And now for the episode.
I'm descending on the gravel road, and then another bear is running up a tree in front of me. So now I stop and I'm stuck, and I'm like, I don't know what to do, because if I go forward, there's a bear. And if I go back, there's
a bear family. Yeah.
What do I do? So I was like, hush. So took a moment. I'm like praying. I'm like, hey, I'll be a better person. Like, just don't let the bear leave. You know?
Make all the promises.
All the promises.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Zone to Speak podcast. We're your hosts, Debbie
and Juliana.
Welcome to another episode of Zone to Speak. We are pumped to have a special guest with us, Syd McGee, avid cyclist, funny guy, CEO of McGee Co, co-founder of Studio McGee Design, and the other half of the hugely popular former Netflix series Dream Home Makeover. Riding bikes is a refuge for Syd. Whether it's a morning home workout or a ride on the road or trails, it's all about finding a balance that helps to create some harmony between being a husband, a father, and the other half of a successfully global lifestyle brand. We are thrilled to hear more about the role cycling plays in your life and pick your brain on your loves, hates, hits, and misses along the way. We know you're all in on cycling for the pure joy of the sport itself. So without further ado, welcome, Syd.
Hey guys, thank you so much for having me.
So we want to dive right in. Tell us about your background, how you got into cycling.
I am the youngest of 6 kids. I have 3 older sisters and 2 older brothers. The 2 older brothers were obviously always pushing me to do something. So whether that was keep up with them on BMX bikes, or, when we moved to Southern California when I was a year old, my brothers got into surfing. That became something that pushed me to do as well. And then we were like, surfer kids, skater kids. So this was in the 90s. And this was when skateboarding was much more of like a counterculture sport. And that was us. We built ramps in our own front yard, big quarter pipes that we were either jumping bikes or riding skateboard. And I kind of just grew up with that in my blood. Not traditional sports, but always, when I was in middle school, I would just get dropped off at the beach in the summertime, and my mom would come back like 6 or 7 hours later and pick me up. Because I think about doing that now with my kids. I have 3 girls that are 11, 8, and 3. And I'm like, that's pretty wild.
Crazy.
Like I didn't know what I was
it's very different now too from back then of what you could do and the culture out there today of letting our kids kind of gain their own independence. A different.
I know. We're always trying to figure out ways to do that with some safety around it, but also pushing them to find themselves. And I used to just get like a quarter and a call from a payphone and $10 for lunch, and I would see you at like 3 or 4 in the afternoon. So that was pretty fun. And that's how I grew up. And as I've gotten older, I've always kind of just found that I'm happiest when I'm moving more throughout the day. So whether that's walks or hikes or bike riding or skating or whatever, I want to do that. And even when we go on vacation, this last vacation we went on, a little bit earlier in the year, we went on vacation to Mexico for like a friend's birthday with all of our neighbors, and everyone just wanted to lay around. And I'm like, that's cool, but
that's always the best kind of vacation. Do nothing.
Yeah. And I'm like, even on vacation, I'm like, let's go. Like, let's rent scooters. Let's go, let's go climbing.
Move
let's go
around.
Swimming, Let's go chase, I don't know. I don't spearfish, but let's learn how to spearfish. I mean, my wife and I have kind of come to this point where if it's just us traveling without the kids, like we will wake up. I will usually bring my bike. I'll go for a ride. She'll kind of work out, and then we'll meet up and have lunch and kind of start our day. And then at that point, I'm like, I'm good to relax. I'm good to chill. Sure. I did a 4-hour ride this morning. I'm good. Yeah.
You did your self-care. And then you can meet in the middle. Plus, there's a compromise there because we already know we're focusing so much on the kids. I have 2 boys, and I know how that goes.
They'll both be like, did you ride? Everyone's like, did you ride, Dad? Just to kind of see them grumpy, and they'll be like, you need to work out. Everyone's like, go work out and then come back, And
I love it.
These days are so self-aware. like the awareness that they have to the environment around them as well. So to pick up on that and give you that
Totally.
tip, it's time for you to get on the bike ride, Dad. It's amazing.
I know. And I think it's really important. We always are pushing our kids as much as possible to go out and play. And my oldest daughter, she's a lot like me. She's a redhead and she's she has to get run. She has to have her workout and then she's in a much better place, much happier.
Yeah, it works. Whatever kind of outlet it is, it could be physical for some people. It could be mental.
Yeah.
We all have to have that.
I mean, as we move into the school year and things are a lot more structured, with time, and even in the summer, I only have a certain dedicated portion of the day to ride. So usually my time is like, I kind of started when the kids were younger to be like, okay, anything before people wake up, like that could be dad's time. So we will wake up at like 7:30, sometimes 8 o'clock. So then it's like, okay, if I want 3 hours to go ride, like then that means I'm riding at 5 a.m.
Right.
Or 4:30. Sometimes I'll start in the summertime and like do a bigger ride, but I'm starting really early. So maybe I'm only missing like 30 minutes of them being awake an hour or so.
Yeah. And that feels doable.
During the year.
I know as parents, we can struggle with that feeling of, are we there enough if we're doing something like that for ourselves? I know I go through that sometimes. So
yeah, totally. And then in the school year, I mean, that shifts to like, it becomes a lot earlier. They have to get up at like 7:15. So my time window is short. And that's like, gotta do that. Once we go to school, then I'm like meetings start, and my brother and I we do a lot of training at the same time. We'll talk about it. He lives in Southern California, and we just joke like the days we do in the morning, you never get to do it in the afternoon because you're like,
no.
I'm later, and if you're a busy person, like your day fills up and you have no time left,
Yeah. It's so important. I think after becoming a mom, I became so much more structured, and people ask me, how do you do it? And I'm like, actually, it's much easier now, because before I'll be like, I'll do it later. And then that later never happened. And being a parent actually structured my day so much that I became so much more disciplined.
Yeah. Like our kids have their schedule for bedtime, for everything that we do. And sometimes that makes us the less fun parents. Like some other parents are like, we can stay up, whatever. And I'm like, okay.
There's a hack to that. And you have to have this structure. It's good for them. But that's the importance of having these outlets and having cycling and having these conversations with adults, because we get so focused on the family aspect.
I think it definitely is always a balance, right? Because anything taken to its extreme is like bad, right? If everything's always scheduled, like kids are going to lose their mind. And if I'm riding, I can't ride all day, recovery, and I don't have time to do any other things. But finding that balance is always important. And so that's something that we're always trying to chase, because I never think that we achieve it. It's just like, I kind of think it's like a sliding scale, balancing life and family and work and cycling or other sports. It's just like, you're never going to find a perfect balance, and there never is. So don't have that be another stress point in your life to like freak out about. Just know that it's just dials. Sometimes stuff gets turned up and turned down,
I love that.
Beautifully said.
You said you were cycling since, how old were you?
I remember I just had a 40th birthday this last week, and they had some pictures out, and I had this like teal aqua blue bike with like white tires. And I was like, that thing's sick. Like just looking back at it, I'm like, I would ride that now. But I was thinking I was 4 when I had that bike,
Oh, well, you started early.
Oh, but yeah, I remember that bike because I remember going to some dirt jumps with my brothers and them being like, yeah, you should hit that. And I'm like, okay. So my brother, so my oldest brother is 15 years older than I am.
Oh, wow.
My other brother is 10 years older than I am. That's the oldest. And then I'm the youngest of 6. And then I got my 3 sisters and spread out in there. But it's good. I mean, I think I went off and on from biking, sometimes skating more, surfing more, but I always felt very comfortable on bikes. And then in my early 20s, like fixed gear bikes were really cool. And I'm like looking back now, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't think my old man knees could handle the fix, because you're like sliding and like using your knees like the other way to like slow down. But it was fun. We were getting tons of friends together to big bike rides, and there was this thing called critical mass. And
they still do that here.
Yeah.
They do a critical mass like once every, I think it's the last Friday or
Friday of the month.
Month.
I remember doing a really fun extreme one called like Wolf Pack in LA, and it was all fixed gear bikes. Basically, you met at one point, and they just rode as fast as they could through the different parts of like LA. And I was like, this is crazy. And at the same time, like there's another kid like smoking, like while riding faster than me. I was like, my brain couldn't process like what was happening. I was like, I don't understand. I had no idea about like zones or training or any of that exposure to me. It was just, riding as fast as you can and not getting hit by a car.
Sometimes it still blows my mind, all this different type of training that's out there. And once you wrap your head around something, then there's something new.
Yeah.
So you train very structured now?
So I did a bunch of it. We moved from California to Utah 10 years ago to the week. And when we were starting to build our company, we had sold our home and we went all in on building this company, and led to a lot of just only working 17, 18 hours a day, like just
wow.
At that time, both my wife and I were not really like, hey, we have time to work out. We didn't make that a priority. So we went through probably like a period of like 5 years where that was the case, of like building the company, doing nothing but focusing on that, and then time with family when we can. And then that was really it. And I think that we got to a place where we started realizing like that was pretty detrimental, and we needed to start being able to work out. And then we started to really see that that was a positive thing and support each other. Be like, okay, like I'll watch the kids, you go work out. And she would do the same, and really realizing like, okay, that's quite beneficial to give each other time to work out, but to just have like a moment alone, right? Like, and then she started really appreciating that and then doing that for me. And then I grew to be like, okay, cool. And so we moved to a new location as we were going to build our home. So we were up in Salt Lake area. We moved a little bit further south, and I moved next to someone that was like, hey, like us and a bunch of friends, we're going to do this Malibu triathlon sprint. So you should get your bike. I could do a bike again. So I got a bike, ran like 5 times. I like hate running. I still think it's cool because if you go on a trip, all you have to do is bring shoes. Then I went to Malibu, swam in the ocean, really cool. Did the ride, was doing great, crashed, got back up, all bloody. It was really cool. Finished strong. Ran very slowly, but still finished. And then I was like, I love it. Like, this is fun. The competitive side, I want to get into it.
Got the bug.
Waited a couple of weeks to start working out again. My feet felt like they were broken from running like 6 miles. I never run 6 miles in my life. I decided. So that was fun. That kind of like reignited that. And I knew that I would probably trend towards more of the endurance, like the marathon. They call it like, let's see, like more like Olympic marathon or endurance, like racing, just because my brothers have done that for a while. So my brother's done Leadville, which is a mountain bike race in Colorado. It's 100 miles.
That's an epic one.
And he's done it like 12 times. My other brother's done it like 7 times. So I knew like, okay, they tend to like, maybe this is something that's like kind of in our blood, like in our genes or our genetics of doing these longer endurance races and doing pretty well at them. And so that's where I started like, okay, I'm going to train. I'm going to look at doing a race. There's the Belgian waffle races.
Yeah, they're great.
Yeah. So it started really big in California. And then about 4 years ago, they're like, oh, we're going to do one in Utah, like Cedar City. So southern Utah. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to do that one. I'm going to train for this race and go do it. And it's funny because I say train for that race, but my brother's feedback was like, well, dude, you're newer. So just spend time on your bike, like do it a lot of time. I'm like, okay, but like, do you have more for me there? And he's like, yeah, just ride a lot, and I'm like,
ride a lot.
Okay. Like so
zone 2 intervals, mountain bike. Like what do I?
No, they didn't give me any guidance at all on that.
Oh man.
Yeah, they're just like ride more. I was like, felt very lazy on their part of like not wanting to give further direction, right? So I went and I rode it. The biggest I'd ever rode before this race was like 75 miles. This was 125 miles. I wasn't even fueling with carbs. I had like BCAAs in my bottle. I'm like, what? Like, okay, great. You're not going to lose any muscle during the race. Like, okay, you're good. Like, and so I did it. I finished it. I was like, okay, great. But it was like, I was breaking towards the end. We're like, here's pickle juice and cola. Well, I'd never had pickle juice. I like took it and I was I don't know, I felt like I was going to throw up, but it was such a shock to the nervous system. I think it served its purpose. I was able to like then have some Coca-Cola and then just ride to the finish. And so that was like first gravel bike race. That was fun. This was before like gravel was like really cool. I was like, I didn't even know what it was,
It's huge now.
And so it's so huge now. So that was my first one. And then that kind of just led to doing more and more races. and kind of leading to more structure. So to answer your question, I like then wanted to target doing Leadville with my brothers. Like I thought that'd be very cool. So that was a far out goal. Put that on the calendar and I started like just learning more about structured training, what that world looks like. I got introduced and I used like Trainer Road and just got on a very structured training program, which I appreciated because in life, like it was nice to just say like, okay, I show up and this is the training plan. This is what I have to do today. And it's this time period. I'll just plan for that and to go execute my training and not to like be really like thoughtful of like, how am I doing this? How am I building out my training program? Like what am I going to do? And then I listened to the Trainer Road podcast. Like, here's the thing. My wife will tease. Like she's like, you get obsessed. And so when I was like larger, let's say carrying more weight.
That's a good way to say
from not working out for 5 years and just building a business, I got really obsessed with like, okay, I want a couple different things. And then I went like keto. And so she was like, oh my gosh. So then I lost like 80 pounds with keto, like, and then was trying to just ride my bike all the time. And then I stopped doing that as I was like, okay, I'm learning about carbohydrates and how you can fuel with carbohydrates, right?
Yeah.
And just, okay, I'm on a zone do training. I don't really need as many on higher intensity days, threshold efforts, or more just a higher intensity of training. Like, yes, you should fuel, right? And how that plays into recovery. So I started learning about the balance of training at a stressful level and recovery. And the other aspect of that is like, work is so stressful. Like, hey, we have this huge problem and what are we going to do about it? And I had just had to take a couple of years to learn how to like, okay, that's an additional factor that I maybe just need to like back off on the amount of intensity days if work is super stressful, because I'm not going to recover as well. And then I'm going to not feel good and then I'm going to have a hard time performing at work. Because for me, I always have to balance performance at a race with like performing every day for like my family and work.
And did you have all these insights all by yourself teaching, or did you have at this point, did you get a coach that was guiding you?
Yeah. So I love the Trainer Row podcast a lot because they give a lot of insight on that balance. So I think they were trying to take a much more balanced approach of like, we are going to give you more functional training for people that actually live real lives and don't just get to
race. I cannot just train like pro athletes nonstop. Right.
But I did get a coach one year, and they were great, but they also worked with a lot of pro athletes. So they would give me something that was a lot more intense with like less period of rest. And that was a really hard year. I felt like very fatigued. I felt like run down. And as that part of that obsession too was I was just constantly thinking about it throughout the day of like, how am I resting? Am I doing too much? Am I stressing too much? Am I eating enough? Because if you do a good amount of rides and you burn 1,500 calories, like, and if you don't take in enough, like you're constantly chasing that through the day. And it's actually eating quite a bit to make up that deficit to just be at even again. So I've had to learn probably over the period of 3 years what kind of training works, when to kind of like be honest with myself and back it off, and whether a coach was best for me or not. And I know that there's different coaches with different philosophies. And I've spoken to some that are like, hey, we're used to working with professionals. Like, we're going to balance this a little bit more and take in the factor of like your life and your lifestyle as like a part of your training component, right?
Right. The importance of your family as well, and making time and having the energy, some energy stores for that too, and not being so fatigued for everything.
Or, even with a coach, sometimes we pick a coach and it's just not a good fit. Doesn't mean that they're good or bad. It's just not a good fit. Like you said, this one had a lot of pros. I've been fired by a coach before because he was like, oh, you're missing too many workouts. I'm like, I have a child and I work.
You're like, dude, I know.
It's like, I can't work with you. I'm sorry.
No, and then I was like getting like bothered, like, oh, the kids are sick. Like, don't get near me. Like, you're like,
yes. When it gets to that point where you're like, I can't get sick right now.
Like, well, how dare you, like.
Exactly. Like, okay. You're going to ruin my training. That's it. You're going to send me back 2 weeks. Oh, no.
100%. 100%. I did Leadville twice. Both very interesting.
Amazing.
Interesting, different experiences each time.
Yeah, very interesting. The first time I did it, super fun day, but about 5 miles towards the end, me and my two brothers were pretty close. My oldest brother, Rob, was in front of me. I was right behind him, and then my other brother, John, was about 8 minutes behind us. One of the final descents down St. Kevin's, he crashed and ended up hitting a tree. got knocked out, I was just like right there, hey, Rob, are you okay? Completely unresponsive, like kind of just like moaning like that, knocked out.
Oh,
no.
scary.
Yeah.
Then my brother showed up. We notified a couple of other racers going by. We're like, please send somebody. We stayed with him for a bit, but he was pretty broken. So my other brother, John, said, why don't you finish? Like, everyone's at the finish line. Like, let them know what's going on. Make sure someone's coming back to help us, and that the rest of our family that was there to support us would know what's going on as well. So I finished after staying with Rob and John for about 15 or 20 minutes, went and finished, made sure someone was coming back to him. He was taken to the hospital. He had had a concussion, collapsed lung, broken collarbone. So he ended up in the hospital for quite a bit. So there was a lot of emotion. I mean, like as you're do these long, physically exhausting days, you're already kind of emotionally like on edge. And then that on top of it. So I was just like, I was like losing it. I was like, and they're like, Syd's crying. I'm like, well, I don't know what happened. I don't know if my brother's like paralyzed or if he's so.
Has he had the full recovery now?
Yeah. So Rob has been riding for a long time. He's broken one collarbone 4 or 5 times, the other collarbone 4 or 5 times. So for him to break a collarbone, that wasn't that big of a deal. The concussion and
tell him to slow down those descents.
I will, but I think with the McGee boys, like you get what you get, like, because we just do it and enjoy it and we love it. But I have secretly seen him start to be a little bit more cautious now that he's 55 years old,
Yeah, it's funny how it takes that much, right?
A little bit, just a little bit,
Right.
Definitely. I think he's just tired of crashing and recovering from that, and so then we did it again the next year. So not this year, but the previous year, my brother Rob, John, and I did it all together. It went well. Super great day. We waited for each other and we all finished together. I want to go back and I want to beat like my brother's times. The thing is that they're so fast. They did the race so fast. Like it's hard. Like I think my brother John's time is like 7:47 and Rob's maybe the 7:30s or something. But so they give out big old belt buckles if you complete it. And so if you do it in less than 12 hours, you get a little belt buckle. If you do it less than 9 hours, you get a big old belt buckle. And I have them because I wore it home and Shay's like, oh my gosh, like I'll let you wear that for a couple of days. But awesome. It's a huge cowboy belt buckle. And so that's pretty fun. And then I don't know, it's a fun experience to race together. And then this following Leadville, the next month, coming up on 1 year anniversary, because September 13th is my birthday, I was like, I'm going to go for a ride. We had someone here, with our youngest, and I was like, I'll be right back. I was going to go to lunch with my wife, but she was leaving town. She was headed to the airport. Couldn't happen. So I'm like, I'm going to go ride real quick. Met up with a friend, rode in our foothills over here. We have over 100 miles of single track, like right out our back door, and was just having a great time. Actually, too good of a time, was going really fast on our like jump routes, and I crashed pretty bad, probably from like 10 or 12 feet in the air, and I broke my wrist. There's still a scar on it. I broke my collarbone into 5 pieces, and I broke my left thumb. So right wrist, right collarbone, left thumb. I'm like, okay, so I'm trying to ride my bike down. I'm like, that's not working. So he took me to the hospital, and I had to tell the nanny, like, hey, like I had an accident, broken. And hearing from them that like Shay's mom is coming down because she knows it could help, but my wife Shay is on a plane. So I'm like, I was trying to find out what is the damage before I talk to her, but then I'd be like, hey babe, no big deal, had a little crash, like give me a call when you land, and he's like, my gosh. So she's away for a photo shoot for multiple days, trying to photograph a large project we just finished in Houston. Beautiful project, super important to us and what we do. And I think of that because I think, just as we talked about kind of extreme, if you're not careful and things go too far, it can affect the other parts of your life, right? So I wasn't cautious enough. I got really broken, and that really impacted the next like 6 weeks to 3 months. So it was just like recovering from this. Just even for that first 4 or 5 weeks, I was really out of it. They had to do surgery on everything. I was just laid up in bed and was wasn't riding, could barely work. That was really difficult. So that was really challenging. And it came into this year and I didn't know what this year was going to look like. So I didn't really do any races. Like I didn't schedule any races for this year as well. So as soon as I could, I just got back on a trainer. So that was it took about probably 3 months. They call it on skill pretty fast. They had to put a plate in with a bunch of screws and a bunch of bone graft to like hold it all together. Or but it's like a thick putty.
Do they remove anything after a certain amount of time or no?
Well, this summer, as we were swimming in the backyard with my kids, they're like, "My gosh, your collarbone," because it's so big and ugly. Like now, they're like, "Something's wrong, Dad. You have to
Kids will be right."
And I'm like, okay, but I think that's what they want. It's back together. I can use it,
Yeah.
But they were like, you need to go talk to them, Dad. So I am going to go talk to them and just see what they recommend. My brother, who has broken his collarbones a lot, like I was telling you about, was like, well, hey, would have them take the metal plate out, but then I kept breaking it. So I just have left it in.
Might as well keep it.
So,
but it's good you're taking your time to heal and get back on the bike. I think there's a big culture lately of people being glorified for going back on the saddle after injury. And I think it's something that needs to stop because it's not healthy.
Yeah.
You're no hero.
I wanted to try to get back on to some extent. If not, I was like, even though I was broken during that first little bit, as soon as I could, I want to walk again. And then as soon as I was able to, I was carrying a heavier backpack, rucking or something. Just, I needed the physical activity, even if it wasn't cycling. And then as soon as I could, I just got on the stationary bike, safer environment, something pretty controlled, and rode that. And January through early April, we can't really ride outside here because it's so snowy.
Cold.
So you usually just set up your training cave in the basement.
A training cave.
You watch your show, and that's where you just like get that nice solid zone 2.
I was just gonna say, build that base right there.
Yeah. And so that's what we kind of do every year, anyways. And then you were asking about strength training earlier as well, and that's something that like after getting so broken, I was like, I don't know, I'm predisposed to want to be like harder to kill. Like I need to be stronger. I need to have like more of those aspects. And so I started incorporating strength training like 2 to 3 days a week. So I'll try to ride 4 to 5 days a week, doing strength training 2 to 3 days a week, and really just like focus on that as being part of it. And then I got an ice bath and I have a sauna, and I hate that ice bath so much, you guys. The sauna, like you do it at like 250 degrees for you guys, but are you a cold or a hot person?
Obviously, I'm used to hot, so I can probably tolerate that. But I'm assuming the ice bath would just freaking kill me, but I'll try it. But I doubt I would love doing that ever.
I'm a hot person. I thrive in the heat. I think that's my only strength when I'm training. When everybody's dying, I'm like, But I did have a nice bath when we lived in another house that we had the space, not now, but I loved it. Even I heard like there's research that even before going to bed, it releases melatonin and it's good to fall asleep. Yeah, I enjoy the challenge of getting in and trying to be zen. It's a challenge for me. I
have to get in quickly because the other day I literally will like dip my toe in and then I'll look at it for like 10 minutes and being like, come on, let's go. Come on, get in there.
You're hyping yourself up.
And then I have to. So I go down there and I'm like, I'm like, you just got to do hard stuff. Like your family needs you to do hard stuff. And you're going to what? I'll like get in and I'm like, gosh, every time it takes my breath away.
Yeah.
It's not one of those people that was like, it's so easy. I just do it every day. I'm zen about,
To say sometimes I cheat and just put like half a body, just the legs, I don't know.
Just the legs.
Just
that's
legs.
me with the pool in general. My kids are always laughing at me because I'll go in and they're like, come on, Mom. And I'm like, I can't.
Cannot do an ice bath.
Yeah.
Exactly. See? Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Point taken.
So when you're fully healed, do you think you would do like Unbound or some international race? Like I'm here in Girona. I just moved to Europe. There's so many races here, gravel.
Yeah, so definitely. I mean, I've made some friends through both of our show and like kind of our social media presence that are pro racers. One of them is Alex Wild, and he just did really, really good at this last race. I think it's Schwampien, part of the Lifetime Grand Prix series. And he just did Swiss Epic in the Swiss Alps, and it's like a 4 or 5 day stage race, mountain bike stage race through the Alps. Looked amazing. So that looks really cool. I keep seeing images of like the Dolomites. I would love to do that. I have trying to target like 3 to 4 races every year that I like to do something like close by. There's a couple in Utah that are really good race series that I still haven't done, but it's nice to do some that are kind of local, and then 1 or 2 that are a fun place to travel to. There's the Belgian waffle race, which is in British Columbia, which looks really cool. Like, it looks so pretty. Obviously, I mean, the Leadville is fun because it's kind of more of like a getting together of people that know that it's a big race. And especially around where I live in Utah, a lot of my friends like try to do it every year. And so that's like a fun event to just like be in town with everybody.
It is. It's like this community event. Everybody just kind of connects with each other. It's
and
like
that's fun. Not actually doing it is fun, but like the like before and after is fun, you know?
Yeah.
I haven't on much as like the road racing side. I do watch a lot of it. Like in the summer, it kind of gets busy, but our ideal schedule is like summertime, waking up and riding, like working throughout the day, kind of hang with the kids, do dinner, and then try to get people down before like 9:30ish, and then go to the basement stretch, right? Just do like a 15 stretching. I'm watching like highlights, the races. Obviously, when Tour de France is on, I try to watch as much as possible. Sometimes life gets so busy, you know, but yeah, it is fun. I like the Lifetime race series too, because they're doing mountain bike and gravel, and then they do a really nice like recap on YouTube of it. That's a fun one. But yeah, it's a dad thing. It's like my dad was a cyclist. He passed that love on to like the brothers and myself, and I would love to go do it, but also know like I'm a family of 3 girls and Shay. So they're like, let's go to a beach. So we went to California a couple months ago, and we took our bikes and we rode by Newport Beach and through like
gorgeous
island, and they were like, this is so cool. So they love it, but I don't think I can sell them on purely like, hey, we're just going to go watch Tour de France, right? You know, not yet. We'll go, you know?
Exactly. You got to do a little bit of you, a little bit of them.
Always. Yeah. So it's a good balance. But I think the best cycling trip that I was able to pull off was for our anniversary 2 years ago. We went to Mallorca, and that was like heaven. Riding is beautiful. Favorite place I've ever been or been able to ride.
Does Shay also ride?
No.
Together?
She's like, I've tried, and she's like, it's not my jam. She loves to play tennis, and she loves to do strength training, like Pilates stuff and other things. So she's very active, but she's like, I don't do the cycling. That's yours. You can have that. I'll keep trying.
That's what has to happen, is just to have that support and what brings each of you joy.
And maybe it's good because we already work together like all day.
So true. You got to have that alone time important.
What races are you guys looking to do? Do you guys like to do races, or what type of riding do you like to do?
I'm a roadie for the most part. I did get a new gravel bike. It got a Juliana Quincy, which is just like a Santa Cruz Stigmata. And I have never raced. I decided to have both of my children in my 40s, and boom, they both came like that.
Get on, so you can still race, man. I bet you would kill it.
I don't know. I feel like that would take a certain aspect, like you said, that you know of what your limit is as far as balancing everything on that level. And I kind of know my personality well enough that other things have to be in play first before I would be able to do that. And I don't know if I would enjoy it. I grew up being a dancer. I danced nonstop, and it's a lot. I lived and breathed that. So, and then it takes the fun out of some of the stuff. So I really enjoy just the riding aspect of it, and everybody has what works for them. So I don't have the race bug. I competed so much dancing I did that. I didn't know competition
stuff. I know. So it's kind of like, maybe I saved it. That's maybe why, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
What about you, Julia?
I have an Ironman background. I always had a bike, but I always use more for transportation or just leisure, you know, and then I started doing triathlons, and I was really into that, loved it. And then I don't know how ultra cycling came across, and I really wanted to do that, but I wasn't sure I could do it. You know, can I do this? Because every ultra cycling race has so much climbing. But anyways, my knees were giving up on me, and I decided to take a big break from triathlons and try my first ultra. And I really, really enjoy it because I don't have explosive strength in me, and the ultra is good because I can just keep going, you know, keep going, you know, ride 18-20 hours a day, sleep 2-3 hours, keep going. And I just love it because just go to different places and you really get to see the culture, the people, the country. It's a great way to see different places and meet like-minded people. You know, everybody on the ultra is usually amazing, and there's a huge camaraderie, even though there's competition.
And the event that you do, like how long will it last? Like typically will be over a couple of days.
More. So the winner's doing a couple of days. So my husband also does ultras and he's very competitive. So he won't sleep. So we did, for example, Bikeman Portugal and he finished, I think, in 51 hours, 1,000 kilometers. That's not healthy.
Oh my God.
You have 120 hours to finish, which is 5 days. And most people take 4 or 5 days.
Yeah. That's cool. Is there a race like through Morocco that's kind of like that? Like it's like that.
Yeah.
Didn't you do that?
There are a few. There is
You did
no, I
one of
haven't
those.
done Morocco. No, there's one that is called the Atlas Mountain. And there's now the Biking Man is a French brand, but they are all over Europe. And they have one in Brazil that we just did last week. And the Morocco edition as well coming up, I think, this week.
Okay, cool.
No chance you're going to dip your toe in that, Syd?
You know, like that looking at, I want to do Unbound. They have like an Unbound XL, which sounds so hard, but cool. Like you ride through the night, you know? And I don't know if you guys have you seen any of like the Vegan Cyclist or his like VC Adventure?
Yeah.
But just like seeing him do that is like, that's wild. I mean, he just rode Canada to Mexico. That looks really cool. It's hard enough to like, fun to just go on like somewhat of a bike packing, doing a race.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying that more, bike packing. I'll be doing more and more. And I think next year I'm going to focus more on bike packing than racing. It's just so much fun if you don't have a schedule to be somewhere to stop.
So do you like stuff with you on the bike that you're going to camp with, or are you like stopping at like a place to sleep for the night?
You can do both depending where it is. Some people take their tent and sleeping bag. Usually, if possible, on the destination, I just rather, whenever I need to sleep, booking.com or something like that.
Yeah.
It's just nicer to take a shower, refresh. And it's lighter too. It carry more weight.
Sleep in the hotel, wake up, and then ride to a station. And
I just did with a friend of mine in Norway, and it was so much fun. And we did camp because you can wild camp there, and it's so amazing. But every other day we did stay at the camping site where they have facilities or at the hotel because just to charge everything and take a shower. Key necessities.
I know. That sounds awesome. That is like definitely I like that. I like just riding. Yeah. I mean, we just do Tennessee 2 weeks ago, kind of just like a birthday trip with Shay, and we stayed near the Smoky Mountains National Park out there.
So
really
amazing.
Cool. And I was like, okay, it's looking like gravel riding. Honestly, my gravel bike is like needs to get tuned up, and I have this specialized gravel bike.
That's what I want. I just told Debbie.
And then I Levo SL, and it's fun. So
I'm riding a titanium bike now, a French brand called Chiro, and I'm loving it. It's so comfortable. It's a little bit heavier, but
they say there's a ride feel with titanium that is just so smooth that
you don't feel anything.
Super cool. I have on bikes and a road bike, so I have a specialized World Cup, and then I have a specialized Epic 8, and then I have a Cervelo road bike.
That's what I
know, but my buddy Alex, he's like, we got to get you SLA. I just got this thing, but he's like, you got to replace it. He's like, you have to have all specialized. So
no, that's not true. You can get one too.
So I took my World Cup because I didn't want to ride the gravel bike, and I was like, I'm just gonna see these gravel roads. Like, sometimes when you're looking online trying to figure out the route, it's kind of tricky, and you're trying to look at Strava, you're trying to see what people are doing. Figured out this 70-mile gravel bike loop goes through the national park. I was like, cool, I'm gonna go do that. Brought kind of my heart. The World Cup's kind of like a hardtail with a little bit of travel on it.
Yeah.
And took off, rode the roads, and then hopped on the dirt path and was riding. And I don't run into a ton of wildlife up where we are. We have moose, we have mountain lions, but no bears.
Ooh.
And so, of course, I'm riding on this gravel road, and I'm 2.5 hours away from where I started now. And I see maybe 10 feet away, like bear cub, run up the tree, and then another one run up a little tree. And I've already rode.
Where is Mama Bear?
Another 10 feet behind her is the mama bear, and is looking up from the riverbed, what's on. And I was like, my gosh. So of course, free riding up this hill as fast as I can, about to die because my heart's gonna explode. I'm riding so fast, and I'm keep looking. Is there a bear coming? Is there a bear coming? I don't see it. I'm like, okay, but now I can't go back.
No,
it's just a gravel road.
You gotta keep going.
And it's dense. They get more rain than Seattle does, and so this forest, it's thick forest. And so now I'm like, okay, I gotta just ride and kind of get out of here. I'm descending on the gravel road, and then another bear is running up a tree in front of me. So now I stop stop and I'm stuck. I'm like, I don't know what to do because if I go forward, there's a bear. And if I go back, there's
a
bear.
bear family. Yeah.
What do I do? So I was like, gosh, so took a moment. I'm like praying. I'm like, hey, I'll be a better person. Like, just don't let the bear leave.
Make all the promises.
All the promises. And so then I was like, I'm going to start yelling. Hey, bears, get out of here. Like yelling. So I start yelling. I start walking with my bike, like ahead over, like trying to look big, trying to look as big as possible. And I get to where they were and they're not there anymore. So I hop on my bike, I jam out of there. I'm going really fast. And then I'm like, okay, well, maybe slow down a little bit, like going downhill because you did crash pretty bad last year. You don't want to crash and then get eaten by a bear, you know?
Right.
So like,
you're just sitting there, laying there like, pray.
Yeah, that'd be bad. So slow down just a little bit. And then I got to more of a main Jeep road, started seeing a lot more people and cars. And I went through this whole national park and then another awesome gravel road and rode home. And I was like, I tell everybody, like at the hotel, like at the resort that we're staying, like, you guys, there's bears, like, be careful. Don't let people go over there because that is how it is around where I live. Like, you got to tell everyone, dude, there's bears up there. Like, this is crazy. And they're like, yeah, dude, we have bears all over the place. You know, this is like
no big deal.
Bears everywhere. Like on this resort, like,
oh my God.
And I look up where I was riding. They're like, I love this place at the national park. I see bears, like tons of bears every time I go there. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like no one told me. No one even said on like the routes or the gravel ride planning or anything like, hey, you're going to see a lot of bears. So that was the most interesting gravel ride like I've ever had. You know?
Wow.
But
where was that?
so this was in Tennessee, Eastern Tennessee.
Tennessee.
Like,
right.
By the Smoky Mountains. It is bear country though.
And so many bugs. Like I got stung by like some hornet thing and they're just like, oh yeah, that, you know, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm going to die. Like this felt like so many that they like injure you, you know, and hurt you.
It's funny, right? You're worrying more about getting stung by some hornet.
I'm like, and then they're like, oh, that's fine. Just watch out for the snakes. We have a bunch of copperheads and rattlesnakes. I'm like, you guys, what is this place? This is crazy. And my wife is like, I like scare her to death because I go on the rides like alone.
Yeah.
So I like have the Garmin mini and I'll ride with that. So if I get into a really bad spot, I could push it, but at least you can track and see him, you know?
Yeah.
And that works.
Thank goodness.
But it is fun. And I've just kind of found out that like it is something that just really makes me happy. And I am able to like just really enjoy it. And especially this year, as I didn't do as much structured training, I kind of knew how to just maintain an aerobic base and ride consistently and at a level where I'm not blowing myself out. But it was just really fun. I had a lot of fun and I really just wanted to fall back in love with that and not have the angst around it. And that was great because it's been a really good balance of just like having fun, training. I still ride like 1.5, 2 hours a day and then feeling really in a good place for like the family and business. And I think that like, as you know, as someone that loves it, I think you're always constantly trying to find that balance with like life and how much you're doing for sport, whether it is being a healthy, beneficial thing for you, or if it's kind of just like, I don't know, I think if you're good at it and you can get sucked into doing it too much, right? Especially with the amount of volume needed, like when you're doing it in long endurance events. They're like, yeah, it'd be great if you could just do like a 6-hour zone 2 ride on Saturday, you know, to like really help build your base. And you're like, wow, that's a lot, you know? But it's not. It's like funny because once you get into it, you always think you can come around and be like, yeah, that's not that much. You tell other people that and they're like,
oh no.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks I'm crazy.
I have 4 hours to do tomorrow, so
nobody's going to get that. We all know that feeling. It's like a common love and
I know. The other thing that my wife thinks is crazy is like, I don't like to listen to music or anything because for me, it is like, I don't do good at just like sitting down and being like, I'm going to meditate, but it almost is meditation to me because like, I am just like quiet. And if I'm doing structured training or not, like I'm only just focusing on what I'm doing at that time.
So even strength training, no music, nothing.
Yeah. I mean, strength training is like a little bit more, it's like, I usually will like throw on like YouTube and watching like some kind of cycling, something. There's like Safa Brian. Have you seen that guy on YouTube?
No.
Safa, Safa. I think he's from Europe, but he's kind of like, he lived in Mexico City for a little bit. He now lives near LA and he ripped on a road bike, like downhill and stuff. They will just go and he'll do some stuff.
Oh, yeah, he has long hair, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I know.
So yeah, he rode with like Tom Pidcock and
and he's a beast.
And that was like so cool. So I always like watch his like YouTube stuff and see what he's. It's always like entertaining. And what's kind of cool is like he'll do like a 45-minute clip on YouTube. Him like ride, like we're going for a ride in like the Malibu hills and just record the whole thing. So if you're riding, you're like, this is great. I'm just going to throw this on and see what it's like to ride in Malibu, and I'll just ride my zone too, you know?
Oh, it's so much fun.
Yeah, but no, I hear you. For me also, I barely listen to music, especially on the gravel, because you have to pay so much attention to your, you know, the line you're picking and that they're rock or whatever way. So, which is great because then I'm not thinking about anything. It's so nice to like not think about work or anything else and just be like rock. Rock.
Or if there's bears,
or bear.
True. If you had that music on, God forbid, you're
for relaxation. You know.
No, but definitely like in the mountains too, when I'm riding, like sometimes you can hear the moose, like big, huge moose, like kind of walking through the forest. So you kind of like, you want to hear that too as well and be like, okay, probably shouldn't go too close to them because they're crazy. They'll just through thick, dense forest.
Wow.
You know.
Will they run in front of you?
The time I ran into them, there was 2 of them, and the big, large male was like just on the middle of the trail, and it's just dense forest on either side. And they really just kind of move when they want to. It's like even throwing rock, like not like hitting them with rock, but like, can you throw rocks into the bushes or something to try to like have them move? They'll just like look at it and they don't move unless they want to. And
great.
They do. And then you try to quickly go by and go away because they are massive. They are massive. It is shocking to see them in person, you know?
I can only imagine that would feel like a bear to me.
Yeah, bigger. Because their backs are like 6 feet off the ground, you know, just where their back is. And so then you have...
I can't imagine that wildlife. I mean, we have where I go graveling and stuff, there's crocs, and I've seen...
I know. I rode through.
That's a big fear of mine.
When we were in West Palm Beach, we stayed there for like a baby moon before we had our last little girl, Margot. And I was like, oh, it looks like there's some like gravel roads over here, kind of like this like nature preserve. I was like, cool, I'm going to go ride that. So I rode over to it and I'm like going through and they're like, please close the gates so that like things don't get out. And I'm like, oh, like what things? And so now I'm riding and I'm like, there's all these logs like on the trail, like up ahead. I'm going to have to like bunny hop them or like get over them or something. Well, all the logs started getting up and like walking into the water. Like there's all the way down. I'd never seen one before.
That's my worst nightmare.
And then I talked to like a park ranger at the end and I'm like, he gave me the most confusing feedback ever. I was like, are they problematic? Like, do you have problems with them? He's like, no, there's like, they're fine. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, but there are some big ones and they can be dangerous. So you got to watch out. I'm like, hold on. You said, no, it's fine. Then there's big ones. Watch out. Like,
so what's the best thing to do?
Like,
right. That's
like,
only more confusing with a wild animal like that. Yeah.
They were all pretty cool. Like they got up, most of them got up and walked back into the water. Like when I was riding by, like, but I was like, I'm going to ride fast as I can.
Yeah.
So,
get past. Yeah. It is wild. There's this one area I go past and there's this huge croc, even on the road bike. I'll never forget. I was riding and I'm just kind of looking over to the side at the water, you know, and I'm getting close to like the ledge right there. And I'm just like, and I'm like, wow, that's a big rock over there. That like, no joke. It looked like a bunch of rocks on top of each other. And
oh my gosh,
it is like the hugest croc I've ever seen.
Hey, basically riding through Jurassic Park. Like they're dinosaurs.
So we just wanted to ask if there's anything else you want to talk about or promote. I don't know if you guys are coming up with any new shows or...
I'm always trying to get us to do more TV and people would like us to come back. So we're always kind of considering the ideas they have going on. We have, just continue to have our partnerships with Target and we've done some with Holler, who's like plumbing and, we're just continuing to grow. We have some really cool projects coming out. We may do some more television, but it takes a lot of time and effort. Television, it's roughly, if they want 3 to 4 days a week over like 10 months, and on top of trying to run our business, which we really enjoy doing, and then with the family component on top of that as well. So it's due to like how we want to live and how we enjoy life. It's really hard. It's like what I've learned through being a front row to that is like you have to just set some things aside for yourself that are just fun and enjoyable. Right? I don't know. It makes me feel like a kid, and it does make me keep feeling young. And so I truly do love it. It is a really fun thing, and it does bring a lot of good balance to my life. With someone keeping me healthy, but just an escape and some of that meditation we talked about. So yeah, overall, it's something I truly love.
I celebrate you on that and for that, sharing that. It's just to be able to ride your bike and have that outlet and have that balance. balance. That's the best way to do it. We really wanted to thank you for your time.
Yeah. Thank you
Really
guys.
great to meet you.
Yeah.
Bye.
That's all for today's episode. We want to thank you, our listeners, for tuning in. Your support means everything to us. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing, leaving a review, and sharing it with your friends. Feel free to share your thoughts and feedback. We love hearing from you.